Welcome to the Lit Marriage Podcast with authors and Christian relationship coaches Cassidy and Daniela Parlane. On this podcast, you will discover how to transform your marriage from autopilot mode to keeping the flame of purpose, passion, and romance lit in the marriage that God designed for you to have. Learn to love intentionally together. Are you ready to keep it lit? Here we go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Lit Marriage Podcast. We are your hosts, Cassidy
and Daniela.
And today, folks, we want to talk to you about emotional affairs.
Touchy topic.
Very touchy topic. This is a real thing that is happening in marriages today, and it's unfortunately one of those topics that are seldom talked about. Maybe because it is one of those, I would say, it's like a something that's killing you softly, if you understand what I'm saying.
It's not immediately obvious.
No, it's not always obvious.
It's one of those things that just kind of sneaks up on you and you didn't even realize it happened until it's too late.
Yes. So maybe you're out there and there is a level of emotional affair that is going on either in yourself or with your spouse. And today, our goal is to really bring some things out to light and allow God to by His Holy Spirit to expose what's going on in our hearts first and foremost, because it's more likely a heart situation.
Yes.
Something is going on in the heart. There is a disconnect that is happening in the heart between either yourself or your spouse, and this would be one of the reasons for why an emotional affair would begin in the first place. So why don't we dive right in to this topic and let's talk about it. What is an emotional affair?
An emotional affair happens when you basically crossed emotional boundaries with somebody, I would say, of the opposite sex.
Or even same sex.
Yeah, but most likely like in the situation where it's almost like you're cheating emotionally. You're cheating on your spouse, but maybe you haven't physically done anything, but it begins with the emotions. So you're maybe divulging a little bit too much to somebody that should be between you and your spouse.
Right.
Like personal, very intimate information, maybe things about your spouse that maybe your spouse isn't privy to. Your spouse doesn't know that you went out and divulged this information to this other individual.
But what if this person that is divulging this information does not see it as an emotional affair? Because
that's the problem.
See, now we've put a name, a definition to the act. And prior to that, this person may very well just be ignorant. Right. Not in the word ignorant is not in a condescending term, but they were unaware that this was an emotional affair.
Yeah, most people don't go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to have an emotional affair on my spouse. It's just, it usually starts from a place of either hurt, they feel neglected, they may feel resentful, and it's just coming out of a place of like, maybe someone's just there to listen. They need to vent, they need to get something off their chest. We're human. We need physical, or I should say, connection. We need connection, fellowship with, and this is where it's so important to really cultivate that communication with your spouse. But sometimes that gets broken.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it becomes one-sided.
Right.
And that one spouse might feel like, oh, maybe there's somebody at the workplace that person's really caring and they're just being a friend. And you don't really see anything wrong at that moment. You just need somebody to kind of spill the beans to you. It starts out innocently. It never starts out, I don't believe that it ever starts out with ill intention.
Okay.
It's just, okay, somebody's available to listen and I have this need that I need to empty out. It feels good to just take that burden off.
Right.
And that other person is listening. So where we're coming from is, okay, how do we recognize this kind of situation and how do we put guardrails around our marriage so that we don't initiate the possibility of an emotional affair?
What if there's somebody out there listening right now and you're like, what you just said, that's thing,
that's me.
You just hit that thing right on
the head.
What do you say to such a person who, let's talk about the perpetrator, the one who is inflicting the pain. What do you say to that person right now?
When you say perpetrator,
the person who is having the affair, the unknowing, it's
the
unknown
one
to them.
That's actually seeking out
kind
of emotional.
Yes. What can you say to that person
connection
right now? Because you just hit something on the nail right on the head right there.
There would be some questions to ask. I'd say, first of all, is that person, it's just think about these questions before, like, see if you're doing these things. First of all, is the person of the opposite sex? Because that's I think that plays a huge part.
Right.
The other thing would be, okay, whatever you are discussing with this person, is your spouse aware of it? That would be
more likely not.
That would be your first clue that something is up. Do you feel, are you starting to kind of build this bond or connection, like a deeper friendship with this person? Do you find yourself going to them before your spouse? You feel more comfortable speaking to them than you do with when you're speaking to your spouse? Those are some really, I think,
tough questions.
Yeah, and I think those would really help to reveal if you said yes to those. Right. Maybe you need to do a little more soul searching, and you need to really figure out how you can communicate better with your spouse. And if you're in a place where you feel like you can't, or you're not getting through, maybe that's where you need to actually see about getting some kind of counseling.
Absolutely.
With your spouse. Like go to a spiritual leader.
Why would a person,
professional counseling.
Why would a person in that situation leave or go outside of their marriage? Let's just use that terminology. Why would they go outside of their marriage looking for some kind of approval or friendship if their spouse was emotionally available? If the spouse was available emotionally, why would that person feel led to go outside and go seek outside attention, if you may? Why would that even be a thing? Is really, because maybe somebody's thinking that out there. Why would anybody want to do that?
Well, I think it's just part of our human nature. We want to be heard. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be able to express themselves. If they have frustration, you need an outlet. Everybody needs that. So it is stemming from a genuine human need. I believe when somebody does that, it's just, is it the appropriate avenue that they're taking? That's the question. Is that kind of everybody has those needs. We need to express. We need to have an outlet. But the question is, who becomes the outlet? And where should we go? If maybe you've tried and it's not successful. And it's tough. I mean, it's not a one-size-fit-all kind of advice that we can give. It really depends on your unique situation. But I'd say, generally, if it's a communication breakdown that you're having with your spouse, first of all, have you even attempted to speak to them? Because I find that in a lot of situations that I've witnessed personally, like in the workplace in the past and just in conversation with friends, is a lot of times there isn't even an attempt made in the first place to even discuss it with the spouse. It's almost like the person makes a judgment call, like, oh, they won't even... I don't need to tell them. Like, they just automatically feel like maybe there's been a communication breakdown for a while. So you've never really, you feel kind of like you've been emotionally shut out, that now
you've given up.
You've given up and you just want to go to, maybe you just don't feel comfortable for whatever reason. You just don't have that intimacy anymore. So now you feel like, well, this person at work, you see them every day. You create bonds. Time creates bonds. The more time you spend with someone, the more a bond will be created. Whether you know it or not, you need to be aware.
You just said something. The word intimacy.
Yes.
A lot of people, when they think we've talked about this before, because a lot of people, when they think about intimacy, they just think about sex. Mm-hmm. But intimacy is much deeper.
It starts way before sex.
Right? And there's intellectual intimacy that some people have failed to explore. Absolutely. And maybe at one point you used to be intellectual with your spouse and now you're not.
Yeah.
And now you find someone else who you can now be intellectual.
Like that guy, he gets me.
Right?
He gets me.
Right? And we see this all the time.
Yes.
Right?
So true.
I think one of the things that we can really encourage our listeners to do today is to begin to rediscover.
Rediscover your spouse. I was just going to say that. You read my mind, honey.
We got to rediscover each other, and maybe you're thinking, well, there's nothing fresh there. There's nothing new that I can discover about him or her. It's like...
Trust me, there's always something new.
Right?
We change over time.
We're never the same last year than we are today. I mean, that could obviously be different for everyone. But people are always evolving. People are always changing. And there must be something about your spouse that you can... And not just about that person, but something in the world that you could both find and talk about. Couples need to talk again. Couples need to find common ground. They need to find conversations that they can have again, intellectual conversations, whether it's about the things of God, whether it's about politics, whether it's about world events,
spiritual,
whatever it is.
It's just, you need to find some common grounds, some things that you both enjoy
and begin
discussing
to bond.
And really bond. Really find that intimacy again. And there are different areas of intimacy, and even physical intimacy, or maybe you need to just be romantic again.
Oh, geez.
And sometimes you just have to think about the beginning. What made you what fired you up in the beginning of your relationship. Just think about the dates you went on and the things that you discussed on the phone, and just things you did that maybe you've stopped doing.
Yeah.
Like how you used to court your spouse, how they used to court you. Maybe you need to start implementing some of those things, reawaken some of that,
Maybe in the marriage, kids came along and literally snuffed out the romance, snuffed out the passion, snuffed out the intimacy of conversation of just the unknown. And these things are common. These things happen all the time. And so those of you who are listening, we want to say, if any of this is like, ringing true to your present situation, just know that you're not alone. You are absolutely not alone. This is a common issue that happens in marriages out there. Are we saying this because we are trying to, support that? No, we're empathetic towards the fact that people have emotional affairs, because this is a part of, say, even the marital growth that happens out there. So we want to let you know, just so that you don't feel that we're here bashing you over the heads. We're here to say to you, these things do happen. Do we condone them? No, we do not. But we're saying that there is a way out of that. You can begin to love again. You can begin to be intimate again. You can begin to experience the fire in your marriage again. And you don't have to go outside looking for spark that is already right there. My grandmother used to say, old fire stick. Yes.
Old fire stick what?
They catch easily.
Oh.
Yes. So really what that is saying, and people could interpret that differently, but what you consider to be old in your home, your relationship, your marriage, whatever, that thing, it doesn't take much for it to spark. You just got to put the work into it. That's really what it takes.
Start pursuing one another again, and really have those. It's sometimes, it might be uncomfortable if you've had things are feeling kind of rusty, like you haven't actually spent time chatting and opening up to each other. It might feel like, everyday mundane, the same old. We don't really get time to sit and talk and feel refreshed. We don't have those refreshing conversations anymore. Well, maybe somebody has to make that first move. And sometimes that can be very uncomfortable.
Right.
And just get out of your comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone.
Put the kids to bed. And set the atmosphere. Set the atmosphere. Put on some nice, relaxing music, dim the lights, and just kind of hang out. Try to have a night where you can maybe not discuss logistical things like the bills and work. Try to have a discussion that's completely about you and them. Yeah. I have a question for you. So if there's somebody out there who is either experiencing emotional affair, or there's a spouse out there that's listening and they're thinking, that's me.
Deactivate your Facebook account.
I think I'm having an emotional affair. I haven't touched the person. We haven't done anything romantic or whatever, but I think that's me. I think I'm having an affair emotionally. I think some steps that you can begin to take right now is begin to open up to your spouse about this. It might not be easy. This may be an uncomfortable conversation to have. That's one step that you can take. And definitely pray and ask God for an opportunity to speak to your spouse. Sometimes, it's not what you say, but how you say it and when you say it. Right?
Very much.
And so it's important to pray and ask God for an opportunity and how to approach your spouse in the most meek and loving and gentle way possible, and ask God to allow there to be an understanding and really talk about why that would happen to you and why this is happening to you. And, again, it might be uncomfortable at first, but I really believe that you can have this conversation. Another thing that you can do, if this is you, if you are that person, is, if you're having these, secret texting and back and forth and, social media conversations.
Yeah, there's so much accessibility these days too.
Right.
It makes it feel
easy,
and it's not that big of a deal. It's just a text, or it's just, boundaries tend to be so blurred.
Absolutely.
So we need to create the boundaries.
Absolutely. Cut those text messages off. Cut those, secret calls or whatever. Cut them off. Just cold turkey, walk away. Whatever you flirt with, you're going to want to touch one of these days, is what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
And I think another one of the things that you could do, so first I said have the conversation and cut off those text messages, but also be transparent with your spouse. Number 3, I think, is something that you need to do. Be transparent with your spouse. So maybe you're the spouse out there and you're looking at this and you're saying, I think my spouse is having an emotional affair. Maybe some of the signs would be this person is very protective of their cell phone. Very protective of their social media, very protective of their email, very protective of this or that. You don't have access to any of these things. We encourage couples out there who are listening, be sure to be transparent with your spouse. Your social media accounts, your emails, they should be accessible, not so that your spouse could go through them and check for and spy. But you know what? It's there. It's accessible to your spouse because your spouse knows that he or she can trust you with everything. I'm telling you this right now. This is how our relationship is. My wife, if she wants to go through my phone, she can knock her socks off. Go for it. She has access to my emails. She has access to my socials. Anything she wants, it's there for her. That alleviates any kind of stress, any kind of doubt in her mind. So that's something that you could do in your relationship as well. Those of you who are listening and you feel like you probably are having an emotional affair, or you think your spouse, you suspect that this is happening. Begin to be transparent about your socials, your email, your phone log, and all that. And, it's, for example, recently my wife saw a call in my phone. She's like, when did you have this conversation? And she's allowed to ask those questions. And I said simply to her, you go ahead. You know that this is an individual that we speak, occasionally. I've known this person for many years. You know this person for many years. And so we kind of squashed the whole thing there and then. But the idea was my wife understood from that conversation, and just based on my character, that she can trust that her husband is being transparent, is being real, is being honest with her. So it's so important that, your spouse has access to all your stuff.
And I think another, speaking on transparency, another thing to practice is if you do have any kind of conversations or chat, whether it's social media or text or somebody that like especially the opposite sex, think about it this way. Can that conversation, could you imagine your spouse being in that conversation with the other person? And if you feel like you couldn't, like that your spouse couldn't be reading it, you're probably doing something you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
Like, just imagine your spouse being there with you, reading what you're typing.
Right.
So if you feel like you would have to hide it, like, ooh, I should just put my phone down quickly, then maybe there's something you're hiding.
Absolutely.
So that's your conscience telling you, oh, if this is not appropriate for my spouse to see, then maybe it's inappropriate.
Yeah.
So it could be something that you think, oh, it's innocent. It's just an innocent flirt, or it's just an innocent, or it might not even be flirting at all. It could just be whatever you're discussing. Maybe your spouse would not be okay with you discussing that.
Let's just say,
and you want to honor your spouse.
If you don't think your spouse would approve,
exactly,
stay away.
Absolutely.
And that
would be a pretty hard and fast rule that I think
absolutely
is
absolutely
is good to practice, and it's something that we already do.
We did say that this would be a tough conversation to have. And
it's definitely politically incorrect, I would say, for this day and age.
But we truly hope that what we have divulged today and what we've talked about has helped somebody. If you know someone out there who is struggling and you think they're having an emotional affair, and maybe, this is not for anyone to feel judged. This is this is probably the wake-up call that you need to change course.
Yes.
Right? To course correct. And so that could definitely be something that you might want to consider doing today. We are so happy that you took the time out of your busy schedule to have this conversation with us. If you have not yet followed us on any of our socials, please go right ahead and do that. Just click the button right now. And also, if you know somebody who could benefit from this, go ahead and share this conversation. Share this with a friend or a family member. Too many marriages are falling apart these days for absolutely no reason at all. No reason at all. Things that could be corrected. And maybe through these conversations, maybe there's a conversation that you could, go through our playlist and see if there's something that we talked about, maybe something that could really help your marriage or someone that you know. Go ahead and share today. Please follow us, as mentioned, on our social, and also check us out on our website at www.makeyourmarriagegreatagain.ca, and there you'll find everything about us. If you ever want to reach out to us, go right ahead and do that. We look forward to hearing from you. God bless you once again. And until next time, keep it
lit.
God bless you.